Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
You have arrived at the AllMomDoes podcast. I'm your host, Julie Lyles Carr. We're part of the Purposely Podcast Network. And I love hearing where you're at in your life, what's going on, the things you're dealing with, the questions you have. And we really work hard to try to bring on the guests and topics that serve you right where you are in your life today. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited for the guests that we have on today. But I do want to give you a little heads up. We're going to have a very direct conversation about a topic that moms and dads really need to be talking to their kids about. And we're going to be pretty straightforward with it. So if you want to put on some headphones, might be a good idea. Maybe take a little roll around the block while you walk. And we will roll into this great conversation we're going to have with Greta Eskridge. Greta, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Julie, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be with you.
You are quite the author, speaker, personality. I see you all over the place. Give the listener a little window into your world. I know you're in Long Beach, California. Tell me about your family, the things you like to do, hobbies, whatever is going on in your world right now.
Well, I am a mom to four, and my husband and I have been married for 27 years. And our kids range in age from 21 down to 13. So we've got a house full of teens and young adults, and it is a fun and amazing time. I love the teen years, even though sometimes, it's teenagers. The hormones are raging. Mine, theirs, everyone's.
Yep.
And I homeschooled my kids before we homeschooled. I was a high school English teacher, but then when we started having babies, I wanted to be with them as much as I could. So we've been homeschooling from the very beginning. And I love being outside. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I love coffee and hiking and reading books, and really just being with my family. It's my favorite.
Love that. And you have written so many books at this point. You are quite the writer, and your latest work, Greta, I got to tell you, I shared with you before we got on mics. When I saw it come across my desk, I thought, wow, she's saying it out loud. I am so glad. So listener, here, heads up. We have many times tackled on this show the issue of pornography, and we have talked about it from several different viewpoints and what it means to a marriage, what it means for women. And we have chatted before a little bit about how to protect our kids in an age that is just saturated with this kind of content. But Greta, you are advising something that I think is so beautiful, which is, hey, moms and dads, it's time to actually talk about porn with our kids. Tell me how you realized that this was the next topic that you wanted to tackle. What were you seeing that created that urgency to say, somebody needs to get a book into parents' hands about this?
Well, I'll start by saying this was never my chosen topic. I truly feel that God appointed it to me, and I had to say, okay, Lord. But there's a personal part of the story, which was porn impacted my marriage. My husband confessed many years ago to having a porn addiction, which led to an affair, because unbeknownst to me at the time, who knew nothing about the world of pornography, is that it's very common for a person who uses pornography repeatedly to then want to pursue additional sexual behaviors outside of the world of porn. And that sort of set us on a trajectory, not only of healing ourselves and our marriage, but also determining how could we give our kids better tools than we were given when it comes to pornography and healthy sexuality. We both grew up in Christian homes in the 80s and 90s. And while our parents did such a good job with what they had, they did not have a lot of tools in this area. And so we thought, at the time we had 3 little kids, and shortly after 4, 3 boys, 1 girl, like, how are we going to do this? How can we equip them better? And so that became a personal journey, which several years later, I began to talk to friends, and I realized, oh, nobody's talking about this. We all know we want to do something different, but we don't know how. And those personal conversations became a podcast episode and blog posts that I wrote. And pretty soon I was hearing from moms all over the country and even all over the world saying, thank you for talking about this. We need help. We know we need to talk to our kids, but we don't know how. And eventually, after 15 years of learning and praying and working, this book came out. And now I'm awkwardly shouting from the rooftop, it's time to talk to your kids about porn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm so thankful for your willingness to do that because I have to tell you, Greta, most of the conversations and most of the questions I get in my parenting journey have been surrounding how do I protect my kids from? How do I shield my kids from? What do you use on your computers? Do you have the computer in the family room? Do you do this? Do you do that? And because we've had such a spread of ages generationally, there's 16 and a half years between my oldest child down to my twins who just turned 18. And I can tell you for sure that those 4 older kids, the ability to potentially shield them was
Mhm.
actually a possibility at certain stages and ages. These younger 4, you got to be kidding me. It's a whole new world. Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's not enough, Mom. It's just not enough to think that you're going to come up with some kind of bulletproof way from ever making sure your kid ever stumbles across this. And as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, there are some masterminds out there who are doing everything in their power to make sure that whatever you come up with, they can get around, and they do, which means
Yes.
we have to be having these conversations. What are some of the statistics that you began to uncover as you got deeper into this topic? How much of an impact does this have on families today?
Well, I think the first one to note is that the average age of first-time exposure to pornography for kids is between the ages of 8 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important because so many of us as parents think, well, I'll wait and have that conversation when my kids are older because I certainly don't want to talk to them when they're little. And that is true. None of us do want to talk to our kids about pornography when our kids are little. Why would we? But that information shows us that we actually need to, because what I'm always encouraging parents to do is to be preventative rather than reactive, because so often if we hold off on those conversations, we don't talk to our kids about pornography when they're young, we wait and then they are exposed. And then we have to have a reactionary conversation like, oh, how do I fix this? What repair can I do? Whereas if we talk to them when they're younger, we give our kids a plan of what to do when they see pornography. We take away the fear and the shame by just making it an open conversation. Then we can be preventative because there is a greater chance of them stepping away from pornography and coming and talking to us about it if we have set that foundation of, hey, there's this thing called pornography. I want to tell you what it is so you know what to do if you see it. And then you come talk to me because you will not be in trouble. I want to help you. Laying that foundation when our kids are young is so powerful. And that's why I think parents need to know that by the time your kids are 18, the chances for a boy to have been exposed to pornography is in the 90th percentile and for girls in the 60th percentile. So, wow. If we wait till high school, that's
We've
too
missed
late.
it.
We need to have those conversations when our kids are younger because they're going to be exposed at a younger and younger age, as you said, with your kids, the difference. Even in my oldest to youngest, there's only a 7-year difference. And it is dramatic what the world is like. It's so different for my 13-year-old now than it was for my oldest when he was 13.
Absolutely. It's probably one of the number one questions I get being a mom of 8 kids. And that question is, what on earth are y'all doing about college? And I can tell you, with 8 different kids, 8 different learning styles, 8 different ideas about what the kids want when it comes to their careers and all of the rest, college has been a big topic of conversation around here. Well, there is a university that I want you to know about because it just hits so many of the things that are really important when it comes to considering your kids' college education. George Fox University, it's the #1 private school in Oregon. It's a Christian university. It's located in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. And what's so great is in addition to a top-notch education, students have the opportunity to grow and deepen their faith. And they can learn in this really pivotal time in their lives who God made them to be. I mean, let's face it. We need more people coming out of our universities who know how to be leaders and how to be leaders with character. And George Fox University offers more than 60 academic majors. And that includes a nationally recognized engineering program, a nursing program. It allows your student to pursue their passions and prepare for the calling that God has for them. And let's not forget about fun when it comes to college. George Fox University students have a great student life. There are weekly campus events, there's chapel, there's service opportunities. There are 23 NCAA Division III athletic teams. Here's something that is important to me. There's a study abroad opportunity. So if your student wants to go and experience life somewhere else for a semester, they can do that. There's outdoor recreation because, of course, we're talking about Oregon, so gorgeous. George Fox University could be just the perfect fit for your student as you are looking into college, career, and all that goes beyond. George Fox University, where your student will learn and thrive in the center of it all. You know, Greta, the other thing that makes me mindful in this situation is I often have people ask me, well, how early should I be talking to my kids about sex in general? And if you think about the statistics that you just shared with us, that first exposure to porn is going to be between the ages of 8 and 11, that means we need to titrate backwards in terms of having those earlier conversations about human sexuality. Some of that was baked into our family because as I was having the next baby and the next, it was naturally bringing up questions for those children who were, watching mom and dad go through the process of having another baby and saying, oh, wait a minute, I have some questions about how this happened. And yet it was interesting because with my youngest children, because they were the youngest and they didn't go through that process of seeing me have yet another baby after them, you begin to realize, wow, the intentionality, not that we weren't intentional with those conversations, but there was an organic pace to it because of the way God was building our family. And with those younger ones, there was that moment of going, oh, we got to jump in and have this conversation that would have probably already happened if we were having another sibling for these kids. So what do you find? What do you recommend when it comes to having those early foundational conversations about human sexuality that then allows you to have an informed conversation with your kids about porn? Because to some degree, this accelerates all of that trajectory of those conversations.
Well, I will say that one of the first questions parents ask me is, or I guess it's more of a statement, they'll say, I don't need to talk to my kids about porn yet because they don't even know what sex is. And I always want to remind parents that your kid does not need to know what sex is to know what porn is. And let me explain this, because you're not going into any kind of graphic detail when you tell your kids what pornography is and how to avoid it. You're simply saying pornography is pictures or movies of people with no clothes on. It shows the areas of their body that are covered by a swimsuit. And here's what to do if you see those pictures. So you're not telling them what is happening. You're not telling them the intent of pornography, how it works, nothing. You're just saying, here's what you'll see and here's what to do. Walk away from it. Come talk to me. So you're not going into detail about sex when you're having that pornography talk, not at all. But I do firmly believe that laying a foundation of a healthy sexual culture in your home where there's freedom and openness, talking about every part of the human body, that lays the foundation for this wholeness, this sexual wholeness, this sexual integrity, so that as your kids grow up and they reach the teen years and you're having to have more in-depth conversations about the damage porn does and how it is Satan hijacking the plan for sex, that foundation is laid when your kids are little. And so that begins when you start doing things like you make sure they know every part of your body is designed by God. Nothing is a mistake or an accident or shameful or bad. Every part is designed for a purpose, and we don't have to be ashamed. In fact, every part of you, every part of me is worthy of honor and respect, and we need to treat all of our bodies that way. So having those conversations with your kids from the time they're little, answering questions like, how did that baby get in your tummy, mom? Or, why are you, what is breastfeeding and nursing? How does that work? And why did mommy have that and not daddy? Answering all those questions in a forthright and non-freaking out way, that's laying that incredible foundation for your kids to just build on over the years so that you can have more and more honest and I think truly important conversations, not just about the damage and danger of porn, but also the good design of sex as God gave it to us.
I think I can hear the listener give a sigh of relief that maybe there's a way to begin having this conversation that does not necessitate a full, medical walkthrough of every single thing that a kid would need to know. I appreciate the way that you
Yeah.
so simply describe it. Greta, this is going to be kind of an interesting question, but it's something that I walked through with one of my kids, which was classical arts and paintings and
Mm.
things of that nature. We had conversations about pornography, and then here we were in our homeschool art appreciation, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of went, oh, how do we readjust? Should we readjust? What is this? There's the classic that you always hear about. Well, what is porn? Well, you know it when you see it. Well,
Mhm.
how do we accommodate at times for things that maybe fall outside what we would think of as the really technical terminology for pornography,
Mhm.
and yet at the same time not create a situation in which we are trying to so deeply shelter our kids that they are clutching their pearls at every corner? What does that balance look like?
Oh, that's a great question. And I actually have a whole chapter on this in my book because I think it is so important. I'm married to an artist. Our kids are artists. We have a whole entire shelf in our bookshelf dedicated to art books. Like this is a big part of our lives. And I thought it was so important. I wanted to include it in the book. And I think that it's a wonderful opportunity to begin to teach our kids discernment and to help them listen to, I believe, the Holy Spirit speaking into them. And I remember the first conversation I had with my kids about it. They were probably, I don't know, 7, 5, 3 years old. Like we're at a museum and one of my older boys saw there was a picture of like, it was Moses or some sort of biblical painting. And then there was also a nude statue right near it. And he said, why is there a naked statue next to a Bible painting? That seems weird. And so I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to have this conversation. And we talked about how we had the way we've been talking for years, that God created the human body in his image. We are made in his image. That means the human body, every part of it is not bad or shameful. But how do we honor it? And so we talked about how there are some pieces of art, and including pornography, which by then my kids knew that term, that don't honor the human body. They don't celebrate it. They don't pay respect to it. They make it in a way that it feels shameful or ugly, not safe. It can give you a yucky feeling in your stomach when you look at it. And that's terminology that a kid can understand.
Right.
Like it just doesn't feel right. And I think that actually goes to what you said, that when you see pornography, you know it. So you could look at a nude statue and not get that yucky feeling. You could say, wow, that person who made that statue or that painting is honoring God's design, the human body. I always think of like a mommy nursing her baby. A painting of that is not bad. It is not shameful.
Right.
It is honoring God's good design. But you could also look at it, another painting or another sculpture, and it gives you that yucky feeling in your tummy. And when you feel that, you can say, I don't want to look at that. It doesn't make me feel good. And you can walk away. And that gives the kid the ability to begin learning to discern, how do these things make me feel? Do they make me feel uncomfortable? Do they make me feel ashamed? Do they make me feel okay? To acknowledge that, understand it, and then make a choice based on that. And then as they grow up, continuing that conversation and allowing them the freedom to say, I'm okay being in this room that is, filled with nude statues. We were just in Italy last year as a family. We took our first trip to Europe. There were nude statues
Everywhere.
in a lot of places. And every child and every person in our family had the freedom to say, I'm okay with this or I'm not okay. I remember we were in one museum and my 13-year-old, he goes, I just don't like how everyone in here is naked and I don't want to be in this room anymore. I was like, okay, I'll go out with you.
Yeah.
We don't have to stay. That is you're giving your kids so much in that moment,
Yes.
helping them learn to discern, but also giving them the freedom to say, this isn't okay for me right now. Like walking with them in that. That's how we've handled it. I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but I think for us, it has proved to be really a powerful way to interact with art in a way that honors ourselves and honors God.
It feels very, very balanced. And I love that you take the time to talk through that, because it is an important distinguisher, and yet also to follow that conviction that you may have of the Holy Spirit that may not always match everybody around you. I think that's beautiful.
Yes.
I told you before we started recording that I love the title of your new book. It's called It's Time to Talk to Your Kids About Porn, A Parent's Guide to Helping Children and Teens Develop Sexual Integrity. And I shared with you that I love that you use this phrase, sexual integrity. I think about sexual ethics. This is something that, in my opinion, we have really been missing in all of this, talking about purity and pornography and all these different things. We have missed an opportunity, I think, to talk about what it means to be an integrity-filled person with ourselves and with others. And there are a lot of ways in which, when we talk about integrity or ethics, we remove this idea of shame or guilt or the things that sometimes get associated and lumped into these conversations. And we're able to celebrate the choices that we're making that are honoring to ourselves and to other people. So talk to me about what sexual integrity looks like within this topic of porn, and how we instill a sense of integrity in our kids at young ages and beyond.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you asked this. I think it is so vital for us to begin to teach our kids what sexual integrity is, because pornography is absolutely and utterly lacking in sexual integrity. Integrity being we're treating others well, we're honoring them, right? We're protecting them. Pornography is laced with things like objectification, which is where we treat other people as objects to use for our own pleasure, our own needs, and then we toss them aside when they no longer serve us the way we want. It is connected to things like sex trafficking, sexploitation, things like child sexual images, just laced with things that have no integrity for the other person. And what I have found is if all we're engaging in when we have a conversation about healthy sexuality is to say, don't have sex till you're married and then you will be obeying all the rules, we're missing out on, I believe, God's heart for what real sexual wholeness and real sexual integrity is. And that is avoiding things that put other people and ourselves in situations where we're harming one another or harming ourselves. And so when we can tell, especially like by the teenage years, I've talked with teens who have no idea that pornography is harmful to themselves or others. No one's ever told them, hey, that person on the other side of the screen is likely, in all likelihood, not there willingly. They're coerced into this position and they're doing things against their will. That is harmful to them. And it's harmful for you to be engaging in it, even though you're like, well, it's just on a screen. Like, I'm not doing anything, right? I'm just watching it. No, by engaging in it, you're promoting this. You are helping this go out into the world and creating a need for it for other people and having the pornography industry make more. That by saying, I'm choosing not to participate in that, that is a way you can have sexual integrity. You can be helping others who are harmed by pornography and helping yourself. Wow, that is such a bigger conversation than just don't have sex till you're married.
Right.
It's about how do we honor people? How do we honor ourselves? How do we honor God? And I think that is something that every kid needs to learn. It's about a lot more than just the wait till marriage conversation.
So important. I was reading just yesterday an article about some of the women who are now coming forth who were very much engaged in Hugh Hefner's lifestyle. He was the publisher for Playboy magazine, and one of these gals was actually married to him for a short amount of time before his death. when they described the conditions, and that is a publication that I think really had sort of general approval in the public, was not even necessarily seen per se as pornography.
Yeah.
And yet when you read these women's experiences in their own words about what and they were there, they would say consensually, willingly at the time. And yet when they look back, the lack of integrity that was in place when it came to how these women were used, what they were used for, the pressures that they felt. It is so revealing, Greta, to exactly what you're saying, in that those who engaged in those activities, those parties, that publication are complicit in the pain and the suffering that a lot of these women were experiencing. And we miss that sometimes. We, for some reason, want to think about this industry as victimless. And yet we know statistically it creates a tremendous number of victims, not the least of which is the human trafficking that goes on with that industry. Now, one thing that I do find that is very interesting to me is I will encounter a mom who says, oh yeah, we talked to our son about pornography. We talked to him. Our son knows. And I'm like, yeah, but you have a daughter too. And this was one of the surprises to me as a mom, was early on thinking, oh, well, I've figured it out. And you know, my boys are going to be specifically targeted with this kind of content. And then very quickly realizing, oh no, there's still going to be curiosity and targeting for my girls as well. And those conversations definitely had to expand and grow. And thankfully, we figured that out pretty early. I already had known that because of things that I had encountered as a kid, as a girl, and thought, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. I have some curiosity about that. What is that about? And yet at the same time, sometimes we still treat this, not only with kids, but with adults, as if this is a male-only issue. Can you speak to that, about the importance of making sure we're talking to all of our children?
Well, Julie, you are just knocking it out of the park today with these questions. I'm so glad you're covering so much important stuff because, yes, for so long we viewed pornography as a male issue, and it is not a male or female issue. It is a human issue because it's impacting every single person, not even just adults, but kids, you know. And the truth is the numbers of girls who are engaging with pornography use is rapidly growing. And there are lots of reasons for that. Partly because the pornography industry has realized, like, hey, there's this whole customer base we've been missing out on.
Half the customer base,
Yes, we could make a lot of money off of them. And so they are actually creating pornography that appeals to females because it's different than what appeals to men. And they have, there's this growing kind of pornography, sometimes called romantasy. And it's romantic fantasy, really erotic novels, erotic short stories that appear on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. And they lure girls and women in with these romantic stories that become very, the nice word they use is spicy, but really they're erotic, highly sexual. I call it pornography on a page, and they lure girls in through that. And then, you know, the next step is when you get tired of reading about it, and then you watch something. And I would say also there are a lot of girls who turn to pornography for their sex education. They want to know what is expected of them. They want to know how they're supposed to act. And they know guys are watching porn, so they're like, well, I guess I should watch it too, so I know what to do. And I see two results coming from that. One, a girl could get turned into, you know, using porn herself from what she's watching. But the other thing is that she could become very afraid of sex because what she's seeing, so often the pornography produced now is very violent towards women, and absolutely dangerous and frightening. And so then she's like, well, I don't want to have anything to do with that. So either way, it's so damaging to her as a girl. Imagine, like, my daughter is 16 years old. I imagine her consuming that and having these beliefs about herself and her future as a sexual being. And it's devastating. No girl should have to experience that. And so as moms of of daughters, we have to be proactive and talk to our girls. We have to warn them about, these erotic books, these short stories that they could encounter on social media or at the library. They're all over the place. But then also let them know if they've seen pornography, that what they're watching is not how any woman should be treated. And of course, our boys need to know that too. But as moms of daughters, we need to be aware girls are watching porn for a variety of reasons. They're being sucked in, and we have to talk to our girls too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Greta, how do you handle, now we've talked about, approaching this from a very straightforward, hey, this is what it is. It's anything, pictures, video that show anything that your bathing suit would cover. Okay. Great way to begin that conversation, simplify it for younger children. We've talked about what it means to talk about the integrity that we want to have and how this industry so uses people. How do we also accommodate for what is simply natural human curiosity and not turn it into shame? I think this is a really tender place where we can get into one side of the ditch or the other. Help us figure out that balance.
Oh, that is so important to talk to our kids about, because shame is crippling, and it is really not what God wants for us, because he gives us freedom when we come to him, when we repent, when we ask for forgiveness for the things that we've done that don't honor him or honor others. But also our bodies aren't shameful, And so I think that conversation you begin when your kids are young by saying, every part of you is made in God's image. It's designed for a purpose. There's no parts of you that are bad. But then how do we honor every part of you? And beginning those conversations, I think, helps really reduce the shame. But also, I think it's important for us, like you said, to acknowledge, like, being attracted to somebody else and liking them and wanting to spend time with them, thinking they're beautiful or handsome, those are not bad things. There should be no shame in those feelings. We should, in fact, say, wow, I'm so glad that you think, Paul is handsome, that you think Jennifer is beautiful. Those are feelings God put in you so that someday you can find a person to get married to and want to have a family. Those are beautiful things. And the other part is, if you see a picture, on a billboard as you're driving, or in a magazine at the grocery store, and you see a person's body and it is showing parts of their body that are normally covered by a swimsuit, and then those parts aren't really covered, they're showing a lot of their parts. It is normal for you to feel curious. That's actually not something bad. Your body is designed to feel curious about those things. But I want to make sure that when you feel those feelings, when you are curious, you have questions, or you even feel like, wow, I'd like to see more, I'd love for you to talk to me about it and to tell me, because there is a lot of stuff out there, pornography, that would take your curiosity and would show you things that you should never see, things that are dangerous and bad for you and bad for others. I think we have to be really honest with our kids that if they see pornography, or even if they see stuff that is soft porn, not even full pornography, that it could, not always, but it could make them feel curious. And if they have that feeling of curiosity and they want to know more, they need to talk to us about it rather than chase after it themselves, because that is a dangerous place. When we do that, we let them know that their feeling isn't bad. They're not, weird or strange. And we let them know that we're a safe place to come with those feelings. And I think those will help eliminate some of the shame that is such a huge problem with pornography.
Right. I love how you reframe this, that we can make a place for safe curiosity through conversation. I really appreciate that. Well, Greta, I am so thankful that you have put this book together, that you've worked on this. Again, the title is It's Time to Talk to Your Kids About Porn, A Parent's Guide to Helping Children and Teens Develop Sexual Integrity. Where can the listener go to find the book, find your resources, see further conversations with you, all the good stuff?
Well, my book is everywhere books are sold. You can find it online at Amazon, christianbook.com, Barnes & Noble, in the stores. Some local bookstores are selling it, library. You can find it everywhere. And you can find me at gretaeskridge.com. That's my website where I have, more conversations about this. And then on social media, I'm on Instagram. It's the only social media I can keep up with. And I'm most active there. That's where you'll be able to engage with me the most and having more conversations about this, but also things like, the hummingbird nest in my backyard and my favorite iced coffee and whatnot. But it's a fun place to hang out with me. So just look for me, Greta Eskridge, and you'll find me all over the place.
Awesome. All right, Greta, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you being on.
Thanks for an incredible conversation, Julie.
Thanks, friend. All right, listener, you know what to do. You have your marching orders, show notes. That's where you want to go. Rebecca puts those together for us, and it has all the links and all the great stuff that Greta's been talking about. Also, check out AllMomDoes.com, and on the socials, a great community for you for all the season you're walking out, all the questions, all the things that are going on. You're going to find your people at All Mom Does, and I love it too. I'm like Greta. I only pretty much keep up with Instagram. I have aspirations of other social media channels, but I'm pretty much over on IG. So find me there at Julie Lyles Carr. I love when you come into the DMs and say, hey, you never talked about this, or how about having so-and-so on the show? That really helps us know what's on your heart, how we can help, how we can serve. So please do that for me. And I will see you next time on the All Mom Does podcast.
Are you looking for a distinctly Christian education? A place where your child can be challenged with academic rigor through a biblical worldview? Consider King's Schools.
England, and I'm a proud student of the King's Schools graduating class of 2025. Being a King's Knight has made a significant impact on my faith and future. Next year, I will be studying health sciences at Texas Christian University. Because of King's Schools, I walk confidently in God's perfect plan for my life, with the lasting friendships that have shaped me along the way. If you're considering enrolling at King's Schools next year, I assure you, you will find an incredible home and family here at King's that will last a lifetime.
Sign up for a tour of King's Schools by June 30th, and if you enroll, mention Purposely and pay no application fee. Visit gokings.org for more. Building resilient disciples of Christ through Christian education for 75 years. gokings.org.